The second my mother skipped my son, the room went quiet in a way that felt surgical. Not awkward, not surprised, precise. She stood at the front of the yacht club ballroom, one manicured hand wrapped around a champagne flute, the other holding a stack of white envelopes like they weighed nothing. Summer light spilled in from the marina windows behind her. Gold, polished, perfect for photos. She smiled. Not at Ethan, at me. These camp vouchers are for children from complete families, she said, voice light, almost playful. We'll move on. Then she did. She handed the envelope to the couple behind us. Their daughter squealed. People clapped. Someone laughed too loud. The sound cut off halfway through like they realized they'd stepped on a grave. Ethan didn't cry. He didn't move. He just looked up at me, confused. His fingers tightening around the cuff of my sleeve, like he needed to anchor himself to something solid before he drifted away. That was the second something in me snapped. Not loudly, cleanly. If you've ever had family treat you like you don't matter, like you're optional, like your existence depends on their approval, hit like, subscribe, and stay with me. Because I didn't yell. I didn't flip a table. I didn't make a scene. And what happened next cost her everything she used to control us. But that night, none of that had happened yet. That night, all I did was bend down, take my son's hand, and walk him out through the side doors while the band restarted and the auctioneer cracked a joke to save the mood. Outside, the dock lights buzzed softly. Water slapped against fiberglass. Somewhere, a boat horn sounded long and careless. Ethan waited until we were in the car. Seatbelt clicked, doors shut. Then in the smallest voice I've ever heard from him, he asked Mom, "Am I incomplete?" I stared straight ahead. The dashboard glowed blue. The air smelled like salt and cologne from men who never held their own children when they cried. "No," I said. It came out too fast, too sharp. He nodded anyway, like he didn't believe me enough to argue. He pressed his forehead to the window and watched the marina lights blur as I pulled out of the parking lot. At home, the dishwasher hummed. Plates clinked. Everything pretended to be normal. My phone buzzed before I even took my shoes off. My mother's name. Then again, and again. I didn't answer. Ethan went straight to his room. No backpack dump, no asking for snacks, just quiet footsteps, door clicking shut. 10 minutes later, he came back out holding a folded piece of construction paper. One of his drawings. Crayons worn down to nubs. A crooked sun in the corner. "Can I throw this away?" he asked. Why, I said. He shrugged. "It was for Grandma." I nodded. "Okay." He didn't tear it up. Didn't dramatic pause. Just dropped it in the trash, washed his hands, and went back to his room. Like that was the end of it. It wasn't. At 11:47 p.m., my mother left her first voicemail. "You embarrassed me," she said, voice tight. People noticed. At 12:06 a.m., another, "I don't know what you think you're teaching him, but you're making things worse." By 12:42, the tone changed. "He needs structure, male influence. You can't give him that." I turned the phone face down on the counter, the screen still lit up with every new message like a pulse. I didn't sleep. Around 2 in the morning, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, the only light coming from the screen, and the blinking router in the corner. The house smelled like detergent and cold coffee. Everything was too clean, too quiet. I searched my email. Old threads, attachments I hadn't thought about in years. That's when I found it. The paperwork from last spring. The Community Youth Grant Fund. Her fund. She'd asked me to help with the boring admin stuff. Said she trusted me because I was good with details. I'd signed where she pointed, scanned what she needed, didn't ask questions. I asked them now. The bylaws were still attached, black and white, dry language, clear as a knife. Any secondary administrative contact could request a temporary compliance review if there was reasonable concern about misuse or ethical violation. No money taken, no accusation made, just a pause. At 2:19 a.m., I drafted the email. Professional, neutral, bloodless. I cited the clause, attached the document, requested an immediate hold pending review. I copied the board liaison, then I sent it. The confirmation came back 11 minutes later. Automated, cold. Account status temporarily restricted. No transactions permitted until further notice. I closed the laptop. My hands weren't shaking. My heart wasn't racing. I felt quiet. The next morning, Ethan ate his cereal without looking up. My phone had 32 missed calls. Texts stacked on top of each other like debris after a storm. "Sweetheart, we need to talk. This is ridiculous. You're overreacting." He misunderstood. "You're poisoning him against me." I took Ethan to school. He hugged his backpack tighter than usual. Didn't look back when he walked inside. At noon, my mother showed up at my house. She didn't knock. She never knocks. She walked in like the walls still belonged to her heels, sharp against the tile pearls still around her neck from the night before. "Fix it," she said, not even bothering with hello. "Call whoever you called and fix it." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't stand up. "The review stays," I said. She laughed. "Short, mean. You think you have leverage." Ethan stood frozen in the hallway listening. My mother glanced at him, then back at me. "This is exactly why he needs someone stronger around." Ethan's door slammed a second later, hard enough to rattle the picture frames. I stood up then. "Get out," I said. She stared at me like she'd never seen me before, like I'd spoken in a foreign language. "You'll regret this," she said. "You always do." She left. Tires squealing, same as always. That night, Ethan crawled into my bed for the first time in years. "Mom," he whispered into the dark. "Did I do something wrong?" I wrapped my arm around him and stared at the ceiling. "No," I said. But she did. He fell asleep against my chest, breathing slow and even. I stayed awake, because I knew something then that I hadn't known before. This wasn't about camp vouchers, or money, or pride. This was about control. And I had just taken the first thing she ever truly valued away from her. The silence didn't last. It never does when someone realizes they're losing control. By the third morning, my mother stopped pretending she was concerned and started acting like she was cornered. The messages shifted from guilt to urgency, from urgency to threat. I didn't read them all. I didn't need to. I could hear her voice anyway, sharp, breathy, clipped at the ends like every sentence was a command she expected the world to obey. I focused on routine. Toast, shoes, lunch packed with the apple slices Ethan liked thin, not thick. At the school drop-off line, another mom waved. I waved back. Normal hands, steady, the kind that don't shake even when something inside is bracing for impact. Ethan kissed my cheek before getting out. He didn't linger. He didn't ask about the night before. But when he shut the door, I saw it. His shoulders squared, like he was practicing being older. That afternoon, I scrubbed a coffee ring off the counter that wasn't there, twice. The sponge squeaked, the sound crawled under my skin. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I let it ring out. Then a voicemail came through, transcribed automatically on the screen. "You don't get to do this to me." I deleted it. At 6:17 p.m., there was a knock. This time she knocked. 3 short raps. Sharp, controlled. I didn't open the door. She tried the handle anyway. Old habit. Locked. Lauren, she called, voice sweet enough to rot teeth. "We need to clear this up before people start talking." I leaned my forehead against the door. Cool wood. Solid. "Leave," I said. A pause. Then her voice dropped. "You froze money meant for children." I almost laughed. "You skipped my child," I said back. Another pause. Thicker this time. That was different. That was when I knew. Not suspected. Not guessed. Knew. To her, harm only counted if it left a bruise someone else could see. I waited until I heard her heels retreat down the walkway. The engine start. The car pull away. Only then did I unlock the door. That night, Ethan pushed his dinner around his plate without eating much. He didn't look upset. He looked distant, like he was watching something from far away. "Mom," he said finally. "Yes, is Grandma mad at me?" I set my fork down. The clink was too loud. "No," I said. "She's mad at me. Why, I thought about the right words. The clean ones. The ones that wouldn't bleed. Because I said no." He nodded slowly. Considered it. "Okay," he said. That was it. No follow-up, no fear, just okay. After he went to bed, I opened my laptop again. I didn't panic search this time. I didn't spiral. I read. Minutes turned into hours, policy language, meeting minutes, archived newsletters with smiling photos and captions about generosity and leadership. Her face was everywhere, front row, center stage, always holding a microphone. I learned things, like how she'd insisted on being the sole spokesperson for the fund, how she controlled not just the money, but the story, how every donation came with her name attached in bold letters. I learned who actually did the work and who didn't. At 1:03 a.m., I got an email from the bank's compliance department. Neutral greeting, formal tone. They confirmed the hold, requested documentation, outlined next steps, no emotion, no judgment, just procedure. I forwarded it to the board liaison and closed the laptop. I slept for 4 hours. Deep, dreamless. The next day, the fallout began. At 9:12 a.m., my phone rang with a number I recognized but hadn't heard from in years. Lauren, a woman said cautiously, "It's Diane. From the committee." I pictured her immediately. Always took notes. Never spoke unless she had to. "Yes," I said. "We've received concerns," she said, "about Margaret's conduct." Conduct. Not misunderstanding. Not disagreement. Conduct. "I can provide documentation," I said. A pause. Then, "Please do." I hung up and sat very still. At noon, the parent group chat exploded. Vague posts, prayers, confusion, sad situation. No names, but everyone knew. At 2:30, the yacht club manager emailed me directly. Subject line, yesterday's event. He apologized for any discomfort, said they were reviewing internal standards. I stared at the words until they blurred. Discomfort. I thought of Ethan's fingers twisting my sleeve. The way his voice cracked on one word. Incomplete. At 4:18 p.m., my mother sent one final text. "You think you're punishing me. You're punishing him." That one made my hands shake. I put the phone down and walked into Ethan's room. He was on the floor lining up Lego pieces by color, red with red, blue with blue. His jaw was set in concentration. "Hey," I said. He looked up. "Hey." I sat beside him. Didn't touch him yet. "Grandma might be angry for a while," I said carefully. "And that's not your fault." He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I don't want her to come over anymore." The words were simple, calm, final. Something heavy loosened in my chest. "Okay," I said. He nodded like we'd just agreed on what to have for dinner. That evening I sent the files. Audio, emails, witness names, dates. No commentary, no emotional framing. Just facts. At 9:41 p.m., my phone buzzed. A reply from Diane. Received. "We're calling an emergency meeting." I turned the phone face down. In the other room, the dishwasher started. A low, steady hum. Reliable. Predictable. Ethan brushed his teeth and padded into the hallway in socks. "Mom." "Yes." He hesitated, then wrapped his arms around my waist, pressed his face into my stomach like he used to when he was smaller. "I like it better when it's quiet," he said. "So do I told him. After he went to bed, I stood at the kitchen sink and watched the dark window reflect my face back at me. Tired, pale, steadier than I'd ever been. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger had weight. It slowed you down. This was something else. This was the moment you flip a switch and stop reacting and start choosing. Somewhere across town, my mother was probably pacing, calling favors, rehearsing speeches. She still thought this was a conversation. She hadn't realized yet. I wasn't arguing. I was removing her access, and once you do that, everything else collapses on its own. She didn't apologize. That should have been my first clue. Instead, she escalated. It started small, calculated, the way she always did when she wanted to remind people she still had reach. A woman from the committee cornered me in the grocery store, touched my arm like we were friends. "Margaret's been very upset," she said carefully. "She says this is all a misunderstanding." I picked up a carton of eggs, checked for cracks. "It wasn't," I said. The woman nodded too fast, backed away like she'd brushed against something sharp. By Friday, the calls came from numbers I didn't recognize, old friends, former colleagues, people who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly checking in. They all used the same words: concerned, confused, family matters, gaslight language, soft as cotton. Suffocating if you stayed in it too long. I didn't stay. Ethan sensed it before I said anything. Kids always do. He started lining his shoes up by the door before bed. Backpack zipped tight every morning. He asked what time we'd be home, not if. Saturday morning, he sat at the kitchen table while I poured coffee. The house was quiet except for the low whir of the fridge. "Is she coming here?" he asked. "No," I said. He studied my face, not searching, measuring. "Okay," he said. That afternoon, my mother showed up anyway. She didn't knock this time. She rang the doorbell. Once, then again, then a third time longer. I opened the door just enough to step outside and closed it behind me. She stood on the porch in cream linen pants and sunglasses that hid nothing. Her mouth was set. Her hands were empty. No gift bag, no baked goods, no performance. "I came to see my grandson," she said, loud enough for the neighbors. "You're not welcome," I said. Her lips thinned. "You don't get to decide that." "I do," I said. "In my house." She laughed. Not humor. Contempt. "You always did think you were stronger than you are." Ethan's shadow moved behind the door. She noticed. Her head tilted. Predator slow. "Ethan," she called. "Come give Grandma a hug." No movement. She took a step closer to the door. I blocked it without thinking. "He doesn't want to," I said. "He doesn't know what he wants," she snapped. "He's a child." "Exactly." That's when she lost patience. Her voice sharpened, dropped the sweetness like a costume. "Look at him," she said, gesturing vaguely. "Hiding behind you. Weak, just like you were at his age." The word hit harder than I expected. Weak. Behind me, the door creaked. Ethan opened it. He stood there in socked feet, hands at his sides, face pale but steady. He didn't look at her. He looked at me. Something passed between us. Silent. Final. Then he walked past us both. Straight down the hall. Into his room. Door slammed. The sound cracked through the house. A picture frame rattled off the wall and hit the floor. Glass shattered. My mother flinched. Just a little. I turned to her. "Get out," I said. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Really seeing me, not the version she controlled. "You think this ends well for you?" she said quietly. "You think people will side with you?" "I don't care," I said. That was the truth. She held my gaze for a long moment, searching for fear, for doubt. She didn't find it. She left without another word. That night, Ethan didn't come out for dinner. I brought the plate to his room and set it on the floor. "Food's here," I said through the door. A pause. Then, "Okay." He ate some. Not all. Later, I heard him crying. Quiet, controlled, like he didn't want to be overheard by the walls. I sat on his bed, didn't touch him yet. "She said I was weak," he said into his pillow. "No," I said. "She said she was losing control." He turned his face toward me, eyes dry, jaw tight. "I don't want to see her anymore," he said. "Ever." There it was. Not fear, not anger. Decision. My chest ached, but I kept my voice even. "Okay," I said. "Is that bad?" he asked. "No," I said. "That's you, choosing who gets to be in your life." He thought about that, then nodded. That night after he fell asleep, my phone lit up. Message after message, paragraphs now, long, emotional, accusatory. "You're cruel. You're isolating him. You're turning people against me. You've always been jealous." At the end, one line stood alone. "I will not be cut out." I stared at it for a long time. Then I forwarded everything to the attorney. Sunday morning, the community turned. Subtly. Carefully. Like people testing ice with their toes. The board announced an emergency session. No details, just a date and time. The yacht club sent a follow-up email about revised conduct expectations. A woman I barely knew dropped off a casserole and wouldn't meet my eyes. By Monday afternoon, my mother realized the quiet wasn't temporary. She called from a blocked number. I answered. "You're making a mistake," she said immediately. "No greeting, No pretense? I warned you, I said. You think you've won? She snapped. I built everything you're standing on. No, I said. You borrowed it. Silence. Then low and dangerous. He's mine too. I closed my eyes. No, I said. He's not. I hung up. That night, Ethan slept through. No bad dreams, no midnight questions. I lay awake anyway, staring at the ceiling fan as it turned slow circles above me. This was the point of no return. She'd tried guilt. She'd tried fear. She'd tried force. And when none of it worked, she showed her hand. People like her don't retreat quietly. They burn bridges on the way out. I knew what was coming next, and I was ready. Because this time when she pushed back, she pushed against something solid. The first thing that changed was the tone. Not in my house. Out there. The emails stopped sounding confused and started sounding careful. Subject lines softened. Words got longer. People stopped using my mother's name and started saying the situation, the matter, recent concerns. That's how you know the ground has shifted, when language turns cautious. On Tuesday morning, I received the agenda. Emergency session. Closed door. No guests. I wasn't invited. I wasn't supposed to be. At 10:07 a.m., the board liaison emailed again. Short this time. Thank you for the documentation. Please do not discuss this publicly. I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to the attorney. At noon, my mother tried a different angle. She showed up at Ethan's school. I found out because the front office called me voice-tight professional. There's a woman here claiming to be a grandparent, the secretary said. She's insistent. I closed my eyes. I'll handle it, I said. She's not authorized. By the time I arrived, she was gone, but not before she'd left an impression. That afternoon, a permission policy email went out to all parents. Updated language, boundaries restated. Another quiet door closed. At 4:30, my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. You're destroying your own blood. I didn't respond. I screenshotted it and added it to the folder. That evening, Ethan asked if he could ride his bike up and down the driveway. Yes, I said. Stay where I can see you. He nodded and grabbed his helmet. From the kitchen window, I watched him pedal in tight loops, tongue between his teeth in concentration. The sky dimmed. Porch lights flicked on one by one down the street. For the first time in weeks, he laughed. It sounded strange, like something that had been waiting for permission. At 7:12 p.m., my phone rang. Diane. We voted, she said. I didn't say anything. Unanimous, she continued. Margaret has been removed as representative effective immediately. The words landed without drama. Clean. Heavy. There will be an independent review, she added. All accounts remain frozen. She is not to contact any recipients or families during this period. I exhaled slowly. Thank you, I said. She hesitated. There's more. Of course there was. She attempted to address the board, Diane said. She was emotional. I pictured it instantly. The practiced voice cracking at the right moments, the tears deployed like punctuation. She was asked to leave, Diane finished. After we hung up, I stood very still in the kitchen. The refrigerator hummed. A spoon vibrated faintly against a mug in the sink. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady. At 9:03 p.m., the yacht club email went out. Conduct violation. Membership under review. Access temporarily suspended pending investigation. No mention of names. Everyone knew anyway. The next morning, the town knew too. Not officially, not loudly, but casseroles started appearing on my porch. Cards with careful handwriting. No return addresses. Just words like, thinking of you, and we're sorry your son went through that. People crossed the street to avoid my mother. People crossed the street to talk to me. By Thursday, she stopped trying to reason. She went nuclear. A new Facebook account appeared. No profile picture, just a name that screamed innocence. Concerned community member. The posts came fast. Vague accusations, emotional appeals, half-truths wrapped in prayer emojis. A grandmother's heart broken. A child being weaponized. Charity funds hijacked. The comments exploded, then disappeared. Moderators shut it down within the hour. That night, a car I didn't recognize parked across the street. Engine off, lights dark. It stayed there for 40 minutes. I photographed the plate, sent it to the attorney. At 6:02 a.m., a process server rang my bell. He held out a clipboard, papers neatly stacked. Petition for court-ordered visitation. I didn't touch it. "I'm refusing service," I said calmly. He blinked. "You sure?" "Yes." He shrugged, marked something down, and left. By noon, the petition was shredded by legal counsel. By evening, my mother was out of moves she could play quietly. So she came loud. She showed up after dark, pounding on the door hard enough to rattle the frame. "Open up," she screamed. "You don't get to erase me." Ethan woke up crying. I stayed behind the door and didn't answer. A neighbor called the police. When the officer arrived, he recognized her. Everyone did. Still, rules were rules. Trespass warning. Documented. She left in a fury of squealing tires and shouted promises. The next morning, a certified letter arrived by courier. Heavy paper, legal weight. Any further contact would result in immediate release of recorded evidence to local media and law enforcement for investigation into harassment and emotional abuse of a minor. Final notice. The silence that followed was absolute. No calls, no drive-bys, no flowers, no fake accounts. The system had closed around her. On Saturday, Ethan asked if Grandma was coming back. "No," I said. He nodded, accepted it without ceremony. "Can we go to the park?" he asked. "Yes," I said. At the park, he climbed higher than he ever had, hung upside down from the bars, laughing. When he dropped back to the ground, he dusted his hands off and looked at me like he was daring the world to say something. That evening, Diane came by. She didn't bring paperwork. She brought a thick envelope sealed with the committee crest. Inside was a draft, a new fund, different name, different structure, focused on kids from single-parent households. Anonymous donor. Ethan's name appeared once, not as a symbol, as a reason. "You didn't have to do this," I said. "Yes," she said quietly. "We did." After she left, I sat at the kitchen table with the envelope unopened in my hands. Ethan wandered in barefoot carrying his favorite book. "Is it over?" he asked. I thought about it. "No," I said, "but it's not yours anymore." He considered that, then smiled. "Good," he said. "I don't like loud people. Neither did I." That night I slept through until morning, not because it was over, but because the balance had shifted. She no longer controlled the story. The system did. And the system doesn't yell. It just moves forward, one door at a time. 6 months passed before the mail brought anything with weight. Bills came and went. Grocery flyers piled up. The seasons shifted without asking permission. Ethan grew an inch, maybe 2. He stopped lining up his shoes by the door, started leaving his bike in the driveway like he expected it to be there when he came back. One Tuesday afternoon, a thick envelope waited in the mailbox. Cream paper, embossed seal. No return address I recognized. I didn't open it right away. I stood there with the sun on my shoulders, listening to the cicadas start up in the trees, and let myself breathe for a full 10 seconds before I tore it open. Inside was a letter. Heavy stationery, careful wording. It informed us formally precisely that a new community scholarship had been approved and funded in perpetuity. Tuition, books, fees, from elementary school through college. Renewable, non-revocable. The focus children from single-parent households. Ethan's name appeared once, not in bold, not in lights. Just there. Quiet. Permanent. I sat at the kitchen table and read it twice, then a third time slower. Ethan came in looking for juice. "What's that?" he asked. I handed him the letter. He sounded the words out carefully, lips moving as he read. When he finished, he looked up at me, eyes wide but steady. "Does this mean I can go anywhere?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Anywhere you want." He nodded, satisfied. Like that made sense, like it was always supposed to be this way. 2 weeks later, my mother's name disappeared. Not dramatically, not with an announcement, quietly. The plaque in the community center was replaced overnight. Same size, same place, different engraving, anonymous donor. People noticed. No one asked questions out loud. The yacht club membership lapsed without renewal. The holiday gala invitations stopped coming. Her table at brunch sat empty long enough that the staff stopped setting it. I heard things through the same careful channels people use when they don't want to be involved. She sold the car. She listed the beach place. She stopped going out. Then the letter came. No crest, no seal. Just her handwriting. Sharp slants, perfect margins, 6 pages. She wrote about her childhood, about loss, about fear, about how appearances mattered when nothing else felt stable. She wrote about me as a baby, about the day Ethan was born. On page 4, she started begging. Just one visit. Just an hour. Anywhere. I waited until after dinner. Ethan sat at the table picking at an orange. I placed the envelope between us. "Your grandmother wrote you a letter," I said. "Do you want me to read it?" He thought about it. Then he nodded. I read every word. I didn't soften it. I didn't add commentary. When I finished, the kitchen was silent except for the low hum of the fridge. Ethan stared at the envelope for a long moment. Then he looked at me. "I don't want to see her," he said. Calm, certain. "I already have a family." I nodded. "Okay," I said. I folded the letter back into the envelope and carried it to the fireplace. The paper caught fast, curled, blackened, gone. Ethan didn't watch. He went back to the living room and started assembling his telescope on the floor screws, clicking softly into place. That was the last time my mother tried. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full. Marlene, my aunt, started coming by on Fridays. She brought groceries, taught Ethan card games, let him win, let him lose, never raised her voice, never mentioned the past. He started calling her Grandma without anyone suggesting it. She cried the first time. Hard enough she had to sit down. The scholarship fund grew, other families applied, other kids were helped. Ethan's photo, grinning, sunburned, missing a tooth, hung on the bulletin board as the first recipient. He dusted the framed certificate on our wall every Sunday like it was sacred. Life filled in the spaces my mother left behind. Soccer games, science fairs, late-night questions about space and gravity and whether people could ever live on Mars. The boy who once asked if he was incomplete grew into someone who took up space without apology. One afternoon, as we drove past the old community center, Ethan pointed to the empty parking spot near the entrance. "Who used to park there?" he asked. "No one important," I said. He nodded and went back to looking out the window. That's how it ends most of the time, not with forgiveness, not with reconciliation, with replacement. The door doesn't slam, it just stays closed long enough that no one remembers what was on the other side. People still ask me sometimes, quietly, carefully, "Any word from your mother?" My answer never changes. No. And I don't add anything after that. Because here's what I learned. You can survive a lot of things as an adult. Humiliation, control, silence. You tell yourself it's manageable, that it's temporary, that it's the cost of keeping the peace. But the moment someone aims that cruelty at your child, the math changes. Children don't forget who made them feel small. They don't forget who stood between them and the harm. And one day when they're old enough, they choose. They choose who gets access. They choose who gets love. They choose who stays. Ethan chose peace. He chose a life without strings. And that choice dismantled everything my mother spent decades building. Brick by brick. The door is closed. It isn't opening. And for the first time in my life, that doesn't feel like loss. It feels like safety.